Hello, travelers. Boardman21 here, and today got an end game build for you. It's going to be based off the Auto Bomber and the VK Smiter. It's kind of going to be a mix of the two. While it won't wear a shield, it's also not going to wear any uniques. This is a very powerful build that you can do with just crafted items that we found in just the first couple of days of playing this new character. On top of that, we've gotten it well into the end game. We're starting to get into corruption. We're going to be pushing it here soon. And people have been asking for this exact setup as it is slightly different than both the other builds. The biggest difference is that we're using Shield Rush so that we can absolutely just fly through the echoes, and while it can be a bit of a mana issue, I'm going to show you exactly how I have it set up. This build does not take any gear to get going. I did put on a 1 to 75 leveling guide not too long ago, just a few days, that shows you exactly how to get set up to start playing this, and this is the endgame version of that build. This is the one I will be sticking with in order to just go through echoes, and we're going to continue to make it better. There are still some gear slots that do not have the best in slot stuff that I could have, so there's definitely room for improvement, but it is very, very good. We are officially doing so much damage from how many vitality that we've stacked and void damage that we've stacked that we can literally walk through empowered echoes and everything just dies from the orbs as we walk past them. If you do come up to a single target that has a lot of life, such as a boss or something with the Ox affix, you can simply hit them with a couple of smites and they're just going to die as well. It's an absolutely crazy clearing speed build, and now I'm going to show you how I have it set up. So let's go ahead and get into the skills, the interactions, and just how it all works. Alright, for skills I'm running Anomaly, Shield Rush, Smite, Devouring Orb, and Sigils of Hope. With Anomaly, we have this set up so that we'll have Time Bubble and the buffs from it 100% uptime. So we have 1 point in Void Touched, 1 point in Time Bubble, 5 points in Temporal Mastery, 1 point in Lingering Memory. What this does is Time Bubble lasts for 5 seconds when you cast it. We have 5 points in Temporal Mastery for that 100% duration. That doubles it to 10 seconds, and then 1 point in Lingering Memory so that the effects will last for 2 seconds after it disappears. That's 12 seconds, which is the exact same amount of time that it has a cooldown for, 12 seconds. We also have 1 point in Time Lord. This allows the Time Bubble to be cast on you for a mana cost, but now it will follow you the entire time. So you will have 100% uptime of the buffs, which are 5 points in Decimation for the 150% increased critical strike chance, 1 point in Manipulation for the attack and cast speed. We'll be using that cast speed. And then the 2 points in Time Eater and 3 points in Void Maul for that leech, so that you can leech a bunch of the damage that you're doing. Now, eventually, if you have enough mana and you really want to build into a little bit more damage and you're already leeching plenty, you can remove some points from either the leech, from the critical strike chance, and you can put it into the cooldown recovery speed. For me, I'm waiting for an Exalted affix to fall that has Anomaly on it, so we get +3 or +4 levels to it, and we can go ahead and take these as well as some more leech. But right now, this cooldown reduction, basically what it would do if we took it, instead of casting 1 Devouring Orb every 4 seconds, it would be around 3 seconds per orb cast, which allows you to basically have 25% more orbs, which means you'll do 25% more overall damage, which is huge as the orbs are a big portion of our damage, but you will have to have more mana because you'll be casting it more often, so make sure you're ready and set up for that if you do decide to go that way. For Shield Rush, this is our movement speed, and this allows you to go in a straight line for as long as you can go in a straight line. It's very quick for speedrunning. Now, most people have asked, how are you running that when it requires a shield? Well, you can actually remove the shield from it. So with 2 points in Consuming Path, I have 5 points here, you can unlock the Dark Rush. This means it will no longer require a shield, it gives it some base void damage, and it increases the mana cost. But with 1 point here, you no longer have to be wearing a shield in order to do Shield Rush. Therefore, you can put on a two-handed staff, such as we are doing here, and this allows us to fly through the maps. It is mana intensive, so be careful with it. You don't want to use it multiple times in a row or you will run out of mana. I try to use it on the straight shots, then throw down a couple of smites to get some mana back, and then you can use it on another straight shot. We also have 6 points in Rush Mastery, 2 points in Protective Speed so that you take less damage while rushing. This gives you that mana efficiency to really try and bring down the cost. And then because after that, points don't really matter, you're not doing any melee damage. The only spell part of this is the Descent of the Void and the Dark Regression. This does increase the mana cost even more. However, it hasn't bothered me. We have just enough mana to deal with it. And then my last 4 points are in Warrior's Entrance for the final hit area. Again, the final hit damage is very, very little. So again, these points you can literally put anywhere in the tree. For Smite, we have this set up because it's void and we are manually casting it to try and do as much damage and have a 100% crit chance without going into lightning and making it cost more mana. So we have 3 points in Pillars of Light, so we have a 36% chance to double cast it. Remember, don't forget, we also have the chance for the echoes to actually echo it as well. So there's a 36% chance for us to double cast. There's also a 40% chance that we're going to echo and have it go off. So sometimes you actually have 3 of them go off for a single manual cast, which is really cool. We have 4 points in Sacrifice. I'm going to be switching some points around. We had +1 on an item, but I switched it out, so we are losing a little bit of damage there. And then 5 points in Atonement, 4 points in Conviction, and 4 points in Deep Impact for that critical strike multiplier. And that's one of the points that I'm going to remove as 1 point from Deep Impact, so we can put it into Sacrifice. Then we have Devouring Orb. And there's a few different ways to set up Devouring Orb, but the way that we have it set up here is to keep it from having the cooldown reduction so we don't run out of mana too fast. So I've got 1 point in Void Adept, 1 point in Hollow Orb, 1 point in Abyssal Emission, and 5 points in Dark Torrent. Before, I used to go into Cataclysm and Orb Master. These are the ones that we went into with the Omnividence build. The reason I'm not doing that here is I just don't have the mana for it yet. If I find some Exalted Mana Regeneration, and we get a little bit more mana efficiency, I could switch out these points from Dark Torrent and put them down in here so that we just have a ton more orbs. It might be a way I go in the future, but for now I don't have that mana regen. I also have 1 point in Dark Moon so they'll orbit around me and follow me as we go, 2 points in Abyssal Rush for that 20% move speed, 1 point in Cosmic Impact, 5 points in Extinction for 150% more hit damage of everything involved with this skill, and 3 points in Sightless Star so that we have that improved cast speed and the improved mana efficiency with the skill. For Sigils of Hope, we're using this for straight up more damage. It also gives us some armor, but for the most part, it's all for damage. We have 4 points in Empowering Sigils. We will have 4 sigils active at max. This means we get 96% increased damage here. We have 1 point in Last Wish, so we have a chance to summon Sigil on kill. This is almost always the way that we get it. Against bosses, you'll be using Smite a lot more, generating more mana, so you can manually cast it, but when you walk through the echoes and just start killing everything, they will naturally proc so that you have 4 of them active at almost all times. We have 3 points in Decree of Flame so that we have +3 fire damage per active sigil. That's on top of the 4 that we get down here, but we're converting all of that to void, so we're actually getting 7 flat void attack and spell damage, so we're doing spells here, and we're getting 15% increased void, so you'll get a total of 28 flat added damage to your Smite and Devouring Orbs, and at the same time 60% increased void damage, so it's a huge powerful offensive buff here. We have 5 points in Iron Sigil, so that we'll have 200 flat additional armor per sigil active, 800 total. Enduring Hope, so they last as long as possible, as we don't really want to be manually casting them. Mana can become an issue. And 1 point in Tetragram, so we can have that 4th maximum 1. For passives, we have 20 points in the base Sentinel class, with 8 points in Juggernaut for that strength, void resist, and fire resist. We have 2 points in Fearless. We will be swapping these points around eventually once I get all of my resistances covered. We aren't capped on them right now, and I want to make sure we get those capped before I start switching the passives around. But this more vitality is going to be more base damage and more health for you, so make sure that you can get these at some point if you already have your resistances covered. I have 5 points in Armor Clad so that we take less damage from nearby enemies, and 5 points in Time and Faith so that we gain back 25 health and 10 mana every time we manually use Smite. We have 0 points in the Forge Guard and 15 points in the Paladin to unlock the Sigils of Hope, with 8 points in Defiance, 2 points in Valor, and 5 points in Blinding Light. You can really put these points anywhere that you want, but these were the best choice for me. And then 70 points in the Void Knight. We have 5 points in Abyssal Endurance for that health, void resist, and physical resist. 6 points in Temporal Corruption to convert Smite to Void and to give it more added damage. 6 points in World Eater so that we can leech void damage. 8 points in Void Bolts so that we have a ton more spell void damage. 1 point in Void Corruption so we have critical strike multiplier per point in this tree, so 70% critical strike multiplier at the moment. We do have 5 more levels to get, so there will be some more passives in here. 5 points in Renouncement to give you +5 vitality and make it so that you get Smite void damage based on vitality, and it scales with vitality. So this is what will make Smite start doing a ton of damage, especially once you get a few points of vitality. 10 points in Infernal Form for the vitality and increased health, 5 points in Echoing Strikes, 8 points in Time Legion, 1 point in Avatar of Regret, and 15 points in Dread for that increased void damage and the increased move speed. So for our items and our inventory, our gear, our idle slots, all of that, we've got a few exalted items. So we got lucky yesterday on stream and got a sorcery staff that had a decent amount of adaptive spell damage. It actually had 100 adaptive spell damage, and it had a free prefix. So we ended up putting increased spell critical strike chance on it, and we did a rune of shaping and ended up getting 113 adaptive spell damage roll, which made it a super great two-handed staff for this build. The 369% increased void damage absolutely took the build to a new level. Our time rifts and our void rifts, all of the things that are intrigued with the devouring orbs, basically it doubled the damage that they were outputting, which was huge. Now this has minion spell damage and freeze rate, two things that we don't want. You probably want like chill on hit and slow on hit, but we didn't have that much time to be able to craft on it before we ended up fracturing it, and we weren't risking a rune of removal. For the chest, we have just tons of health and vitality. Same thing with the helm. You want vitality, health, and you can also get increased void damage and added spell damage. And then for the relic, we have increased spell critical strike chance and critical strike chance. We basically put those two stats on as much things as we can get. The closer you get to 100% crit, the more crit that you have, the better the build feels because you're just doing so much damage. We have vitality on the boots. Again, this is not a best in slot pair of boots. We don't even have 4 fixes on it. I'd like to get movement speed. We're still looking for a good pair of boots. For the gloves, we have a ton of critical strike avoidance. For the rings, we want the coral rings because they come with base vitality. I'm still looking for another one to replace the imbued saffron ring that we have, but this one currently has a bunch of spell damage and critical strike chance, so it is a good in slot ring. And then for our belt, tons more critical strike avoidance with hybrid health, mana regen, and void damage. A very good belt. And then we have the Oracle Amulet, so we take less damage over time. Again, this comes with spell critical strike chance, regular critical strike chance, and that's really bumping up our critical strike chance. For idols, many of you can run the Smite idols, the 1x3 vertical ones that give you increased, or it's actually a more damage modifier for Smite. However, for me, I went with as much vitality as we can get. So anything that had vitality, I was throwing in. So we have some 1x4s here with +6. It also has our physical resist covered. And then we have some 1x2s that have plus vitality on them as well. And the 1x1s are just usually covering a resistance that we're a little low on, which is a few of them at the moment. For blessings, the blessing for the 𝐒𝐬𝐬 timeline is probably the one you want the most. The spell damage leeches health. After that, you can take anything that you want. But just to show you what I have in the build planner will be linked below. We just have a little bit of everything that fell on the first time through a lot of these different timelines. But again, on the level 66 timeline, 𝐒𝐬𝐬, the spell damage leeches health is going to be one of the most powerful ones you can get because it's going to refill your health so fast from all the void damage that you're doing, which is all spell damage. And then for the character sheet, as you can see here, we're not capped on all of our resistances. We do have at least 50% plus on most of them. Poison's a little bit lower. We got 31% armor, but that's going to jump up when we have the sigils active. And then again, we'll have a little bit of a global damage, increase of damage when we have both the Anomaly active and when we have Devouring Orb active, and of course Sigils of Hope, although not all of that is reflected in the character sheet. For damage types, just sitting here, we have 578% increased void damage. Again, that's going to go up when we have Sigils of Hope up. Each one of these, as you can see, let's just go ahead and spam all 4 of them real quick. And you can see now I have 734% void damage, and we have 50% damage reduction through armor. So it's absolutely huge for the build. You become quite tanky with having 4 of those sigils up and active. For defense, we don't have endurance capped yet, but we do have critical strike avoidance capped at the moment. We actually have a little bit too much as we've been moving around. We have a couple of exalted items that had a bunch on it that covered it right off the bat. So we're working towards finding those slots and moving stuff around. But that's just what we have at the moment. So for how to play this build, I like to put Devouring Orb and Anomaly both on autocast. Sigils of Hope will be procced when you are killing enemies. However, if you're against a boss, you'll have to manually do it, but make sure not to go negative mana as that will hurt you. You can shield rush around, and then you just let the Devouring Orbs take care of all the AoE. They'll even kill some high health single targets. And then you can just smite around for extra mana and extra damage against those single targets. So as I get some Sigils of Hope active here, you'll see that we'll be able to do a little bit more damage. Let's get some mana back. And now we have our 4 sigils active, and you can see we're doing 40 to 50k crits with Smite. The Devouring Orbs here are doing about 20k damage per hit, so it's a ton of damage, and you have the rifts, you have multiple hits going off here, and this is without the Abyssal Orbs actually even going after the Trading Device, so there's even more damage to be seen here, as these aren't actually attacking it, as it doesn't count as a target. But you can clear extremely fast, and again, Shield Rush can take you from one side of the map to the other very, very quickly. For leveling this build, I put out a leveling guide, a 1 to 75 for it, that'll get you started. We absolutely zoom through the campaign. That will be linked in the description below, as well as being the written guide for this guide. And you might have seen it, it just came out a few days ago. And that's going to be it for this build guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, it's not too much different from both the VK Smiter and the Auto Bomber. It's kind of like in a middle ground area, but people were asking for it. They wanted to see how I spec'd Shield Rush, where my passive points were for this particular setup. So this is what I gave you. And the idle slots are different. We did end up stacking pure Vitality instead of doing any Smite damage there. So it is a little bit different, and I just wanted to show you what it's like. So let's go ahead and enjoy some more gameplay. As always, stay safe, travelers, and enjoy.